urban real estate, but I guess a subtitle of this is Empty Spaces and Hybrid Places, the pandemic's lasting impact on real estate. So this, again, is from McKinsey Global Institute and their real estate practice. And this is the study. If you want to be thrilled, it's like an 88-pager. But let's go to something else here. Just bear with.
Joe, that's when you're supposed to say, I read all 88 pages and I summarized it for you.
And get the credit, yeah. Well, we let Fortune do that for us, hopefully. So I'm going to roll through this. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you fine.
It looks like you froze, Darren.
Oh.
Well,
I see both of us moving.
I guess jump back in when you can. And I will just continue. There he is. How you doing?
All right. Yeah, I saw you and heard you the whole time.
That's so weird. It went like this for you. I was like, no. All right. So Fortune.com, they helped summarize this, and they titled it, Demand for Urban Real Estate Will Be Challenged for the Rest of the Decade. Here's how the world's superstar cities are projected to fare by 2030. Many thinkers today, like those bearded sign bearers in the cartoons, are proclaiming that the end is near, at least for big cities. During the pandemic, the argument goes, residents and businesses fled cities, beginning an urban doom loop in which falling property tax revenues make cities less livable, prompting still more residents and businesses to flee. The eventual result, they foretell, will be the death of urban real estate. Is the doomsaying accurate? We decided to find out by building a detailed model that projects future demand for office, residential, and retail space in superstar cities. Roughly speaking, those with a disproportionate share of the world's urban GDP and GDP growth. In the United States, United Kingdom, Europe, and Asia. We considered important factors not typically incorporated in the prophecies of doom, including long-term population trends, employment and employment mix trends, migration, office attendance patterns, shopping trends, and city-specific elements, such as physical structure and home price gradients, as well as information from a large global survey that we conducted. The good news is that the bleakest forecast, just spoke to the tech, inspector finalized everything, waiting for the picture of inspector sign-off. Okay.
Send the email, Joe. Let's get that loan funded.
All right. I guess we got to believe.
16 minutes.
Yeah. Hold on here. Yeah, she sent it to me. I see it. So hold on, guys.
I'll keep chatting about this where you're at so far.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do what you got to do. So, fascinating. And I know the article will continue, but retail trends obviously have been changing well over a decade with all the online shopping, job placement and commercial real estate. Office space has been changing for partially the same reason, as well as the fact that there are now more work from home jobs. That's helped residential real estate, but it's definitely not helped commercial real estate. Are you all set, Joe?
No, not yet. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the email.
Yeah, let me know when you are. These trends are shifting and changing, but I always think of New York in the United States. There's certainly plenty of international cities that this relates to. There's certain things that just don't make sense in a big city over time. Manufacturing leaves. Certain elements leave because the cost of living in that big city are too expensive. And I certainly see some of those trends going on in many cities. So elements of city life will leave. Will the doom and gloom happen in cities? I don't think so, because people will still want to be there. As a matter of fact, I was reading another article while people were kind of disappointed that they left cities, as they've done over the past couple of years, and regretting their decisions to do so.
Well, right, and that is something that's happened, right? We have seen those stories of kind of, the vacuum of people leaving Idaho and, wanting to go back to their first home, the city.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Continue.
Well, that is emailed. We'll look for a confirm on that. But anyway, Good news is the bleakest forecasts are too gloomy. The bad news is that urban real estate is indeed facing substantially reduced demand. Stakeholders, owners, tenants, cities, investors, and banks need to adapt. And they need to do it now. As the fog lifts, sitting things out and hoping for a recovery is not an option. All right, 800 billion of office space in just 9 cities could become obsolete by 2030. The main culprit behind the projected declines in demand is remote and hybrid work, of course, which became widespread during the pandemic. The preponderance of evidence suggests that hybrid work is here to stay. As of fall 2022, workers were going to the office an average of just 3.5 days per week, according to our survey. Answers from the same survey suggested that office attendance has nearly reached an equilibrium. The shift to remote and hybrid work prompted 2 further shifts in people's behavior. First, many residents, untethered from their offices and therefore less fearful of long commutes, moved away from urban cores. New York City's urban core, that is the dozen densest counties in the metropolitan area, lost 5% of its population from mid-2020 to mid-2022. San Francisco's urban core, San Francisco County, Alameda County, and San Mateo County, lost 6%. Second, consumers began shopping less at brick-and-mortar stores and far less at stores in urban cores, where people were now less likely either to work or to live. Foot traffic near stores in metropolitan areas remains 10 to 20% below pre-pandemic levels. But the difference between urban and suburban traffic recovery are substantial. For example, in late 2022, foot traffic near New York's suburban stores was 16% lower than it had been in January 2020, while foot traffic near stores in the urban core was 36% lower. Wow. As fewer employees work in the office, demand for office space will fall. By 2030, such demand will be as much as 20% lower, depending upon the city, even in a moderate scenario in which office attendance goes up, but remains lower than it was before the pandemic. And as fewer consumers shop at brick-and-mortar stores, demand for retail space will fall as well, according to our model. In the urban core of London, the hardest hit city, demand for retail space will be 22% lower in 2030 than it was in 2019 in a moderate scenario. Demand for residential space will suffer less, according to our model. In most superstar cities, such demand will be higher in 2030 than it was in 2019, but lower than it would have been without the pandemic. Lower demand is likely to restrain price and rent growth, at least partially. From the end of 2019 to 2022, prices rose 8 percentage points less quickly in the urban cores of superstar cities than in their suburbs. But that will not be enough to make residences in superstar cities much more affordable. True. The reduced demand will have major impacts on urban stakeholders. For example, in just 9 cities that we studied, especially closely, 800 billion of office space would become obsolete by 2030, and macroeconomic complications could make matters even worse. An interest rate spike, followed by a severe recession, could lower U.S. real estate prices by 30% by 2030. For instance, entrenched high inflation could erode 20% of real property value. Okay, with all that said, a path forward. At the moment, parts of the industry are dealing with these problems by ignoring them. Some banks extend the duration of existing mortgages rather than restructure the loans or mark their value down to the diminished value of the collateral. Appraisers struggle to assess value properly because there is so much uncertainty, and using recent transactions as a basis is problematic when markets have frozen to a standstill. Some owners are renting out empty spaces for temporary uses, such as pop-up stores, hoping for a recovery with lower vacancy and higher long-term rents in the future. Ignoring the problem stands in the way of solving them. Instead, the real estate industry should take the bull by the horns and start redeveloping obsolete space. It might go even further and reimagine itself as a solution provider, one that partners with clients to make hybrid work a competitive advantage and quantify its impact. After all, real estate companies, which have many tenants and many properties, are likely to recognize patterns that each tenant on its own would not. For example, real estate companies could find ways to improve the employee experience, make the days at the office more enjoyable and productive. They could measure how much more engaged employees who came to the office are. How much likelier those employees are to stay with the company. Real estate companies could offer clients insight into when workers should come to the office and when they do not need to. The companies may even need to rethink the way they offer leases, offering flexibility to tenants who don't even know how much space they will need in 12 months, let alone in 5 years. Policymakers, too, have opportunities to ponder. For years, superstar cities suffered from scarce space and congested public transportation. Now that these problems have suddenly receded, those concerned with cities' well-being should ask themselves, how can we take advantage of all this space? Encouraging mixed-use development in which neighborhoods accommodate a diverse mix of office, residential, and retail space is one particularly promising avenue because our research shows that such neighborhoods withstood the pandemic better than office-dense ones did. Governments can start by reforming restrictive zoning policies. The solutions will not be easy, but they are not impossible, and now is the time to identify them and start acting on them. Okay, there we go.
That
What do you
was a
say?
great article.
Right?
You know, from our perspective, I want to just be clear that when it talked about that potential 20% decline, they were talking about in the commercial sector.
Yeah.
Because they were bouncing back and forth between residential and commercial. Population in cities are still expected to grow. Population is just growing. Prices are not going to come down. But yes, the conversations have been going on for years, at least on the fringe, of converting some of these commercial spaces to residential use. And like the article said, areas that have embraced that trend have fared through the pandemic better and will also have attracted more people into those communities, and therefore residential prices have held up as well. And you know, each community in our city, I can't talk beyond Los Angeles, but understanding the zoning component, which we keep hearing about, and it's so relative. NIMBYism helped keep density down for so long, which has really helped spur this crisis and availability of real estate in our city. But each neighborhood has the ability to rezone every 10 years. This happens. So depending on where your neighborhood is, it's cycling through various neighborhoods right now. You know, pay attention if it matters to you. That 10-year plan and very specific zoning, street to street, what's allowed, residential conversion. I was involved in those conversations on multiple community plans in our area. And the forward thinkers in the areas that we serve recognize this trend. We needed mixed use again. We wanted to encourage more residential and increase density in certain corridors that had public transportation well ahead of the curve. Communities who have been resisting this, you know, they're just gonna have to consider this. They might have a lot of vacant office space and a little bit of blight that comes from that. But things that have been really exciting for me have been conversations about like converting malls to residential communities.
Absolutely.
This could happen with office space, certainly really high-end office space. They could take, you know, half the floors and convert them and work with the tenants and maneuver them around and, you know, have flex space. Things could happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful for that. I mean, you know, just looking at our areas, I'd like to hope maybe in the future we're kind of the sweet spot. You know, we're close to it. We're just far enough away from it. You know, you can access, but you're not right in the middle of it all.
We've got that. The areas we serve are special. They really are.
Yeah.
We've got that all the urban components that are very close, but yet you can feel like you're living, you know, in a park-like setting in many cases.
Yeah. Well, cool. So ponder that. I will put this in the comments if you want to read on. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. But yeah, really timely.